Stop playing sitting down. There, I said it. I said it. Why do I think this? Why do I think you, guitarists and bassists out there, are sitting down when you shouldn't be? Why is this a problem? Well, I'll tell you why it is. So here I am wearing, I think this is a very run-of-the-mill bass guitar. Middling bass guitar, middling sort of height. So I wouldn't say this is high and I wouldn't say it's low in terms of the strap length. I've got it sitting at the angle that kind of naturally wants to be at. I'd say that, every bass has a sort of different balance point, and it really depends on the headstock mass versus the body mass versus the strap pin position here. This is kind of the dominant factors. The strap pin there has an effect as well, but it's really basically how, if you consider this your fulcrum, this is your pivot point here, how that balances versus that's your seesaw balancing on that, right? Normal height, bass guitar, here I am, playing note angle of arm, wrist. This matters because it's quite a forceful thing playing bass, even if you, and guitar likewise, especially when you're doing bar chords on guitar. Obviously if your action is higher and heavier gauge strings or longer scale length, that makes it all harder. And even when we try to back off and use gentle technique, often we don't use particularly gentle technique, we can end up digging in quite hard. And then the other thing about playing instruments is if you're into it, you spend a lot of time doing it. And there are very few instruments that are terribly ergonomic. The instruments are the shape they are predominantly to make the sound they need to make. Now, electric instruments, we don't have the pain of the body needing to be this big resonator, which makes them even less ergonomic. I play an acoustic bass guitar at home, and that's got a thick body that you have to reach around, which is not great for the shoulder that's doing the plucking over there, which is kind of annoying. But standing, and also standing wise, unless you're a sort of pit bassist, theatre bassist, certain sorts of function situations, things like that, most gigs are played on guitar and bass standing up. Yeah, drummers sit down, pianists sit down, but most of us on bass and guitar gig standing up. So why would we practice sitting down when as soon as I sit down, everything's in a different place? Standing, watch the angles of the arms, the angles of the wrists. Sitting, the balance point's different because the balance point is now no longer determined by this hanging seesaw, it's determined by the seesaw on that. And as we can see, it's pretty obvious that there are very few basses where what's this bit called? What is that bit called? Completely forgotten. These are obviously your cutaways. Your thigh, leg, scoopy, bitty thing that's on guitars. This is further back than this. So they naturally nosedive more, they naturally sit flatter, so you're holding it at a different angle. And it's less of an issue on bass in some ways because you're not playing chords and the angle of the hand doesn't matter as much, but if you're playing busy, complicated stuff, it does matter. But it's also possibly more of an issue on bass because the neck's longer. So when you stand up, things travel and move into different places. And the other thing, if you're playing finger style, your hand is there, your arm is there. This in this kind of mid-height position is, these angles, relatively open angles, quite straight lines, is quite good ergonomically. Now watch my shoulder and my elbow when I sit down. See? So you've got the elbow, shoulder, it's all coming up there, then you end up with a bend in the wrist, which isn't ergonomically brilliant. And another thing, obviously we all do different things for work, but a lot of us are out there earning a living because we have to, and a lot of jobs in the modern world involve sitting down. Do you want to spend a big pile of your leisure time sitting down? Is it the right thing? Should you be getting up? Should you be moving around? So that's typical run-of-the-mill bass. That's a Stingray Special. I say run-of-the-mill, it's a very nice bass, but it's a typical bass. It's somewhere between a Stingray, it's somewhere between a Precision and a Jazz in many ways in terms of neck and balance and cutaways and things like that. Here we have a guitar, which I'm wearing with a short strap. So when a guitar is on a short strap like this, you end up, well, apart from looking a certain way, it's not really my vibe, but anyway, sit down with a guitar on a short strap, and actually we're in, we've actually got not a lot of variation between where the hands and arms are on the instrument, sitting and standing. So there's an argument for looking like early 60s Beatles. But if you don't want to do that, I mean, it's quite nice having it up there, isn't it? I'm not a guitarist. I have at the moment a soprano ukulele at home and an enormous acoustic bass guitar, but nothing kind of a sensible size like this. So guitar up at this height, yeah, that's ergonomically quite consistent. So that's something to bear in mind. I guess that's why. I mean, it seems this had an even shorter strap on it. It's one of the guys here's partner's guitar. Quite a cute guitar. So that's guitar up high, which clearly is a bit more ergonomically comfortable. But if that was a bass and you had it up high and you were playing fingerstyle, you'd end up with that unfortunate shoulder, elbow, angle, bendy thing, which I don't think is very good for you. And I've certainly had shoulder problems from digging in too hard while sitting down and trying to reach over an acoustic bass guitar. The other thing to bear in mind, if you're thinking about this when you're 20, you think, it doesn't matter. Maybe at 30 it doesn't matter. I'm over 40 now and I'm noticing it mattering more. One of the nice things about music is, although the industry is thoroughly ageist, the pastime is not. You can keep enjoying music and doing music, until you're dead, however old you may be. So you do not want to knack yourself due to ergonomic issues. Now we've got a bass guitar here at a kind of rock and roll sort of length. I mean, you can't go a lot lower than this and still be able to play it. And quite a lot of people will gig with a bass somewhere in this sort of range in rock bands. And I bet you those same bassists practice at home sitting down. I mean, watch, everything changes. Also, as your balance point here, there we are. Because if you tip it back too much, it overbalances more because of the way the leverages work, so you end up with a more flat position. And that is nothing like that. So that is my main thought for today. Stop playing sitting down. It's far cooler standing up. You might feel you're being an exhibitionist standing up. Are you? Or are you just playing the instrument the way you gig it, the way you enjoy it? It's a bit like, well, there's lots of sports where if you practice something differently in practice to in practice, what really is the point? Are you really benefiting yourself when practicing if you're actually doing it differently? It's something important to consider. The other thought, which is sort of related to the playing of instruments, well, it's entirely related to playing instruments, but sort of related to this, is do you need to play right-handed or left-handed instruments if you are right or left-handed? So I'm a right-handed person and thus have always played instruments right-handed. My son is left-handed, but we've got this little ukulele at home. He doesn't pick it up left-handed, he picks it up whichever way round it. He doesn't really have a sort of preference, he just picks it up whichever way. Likewise, my other two children, who are right-handed, they pick the ukulele up whichever way round it they feel like. They don't have a consistency. My wife, when she picks up a guitar, although she's right-handed, doesn't know how to play guitar, intuitively seems to hold it the left-handed way round. When we play bass and guitar, we use both our hands, and I mean, you can play some pretty complicated stuff with your right hand, but I do think that your left hand has quite a complicated job, arguably the more complicated job, because it's got to have the strength to fret the notes, and if you're playing chords, you've got to do multiple notes at once, which is a particularly big thing on the guitar, though I play a lot of chords on the bass. And you've got to have the stretch and the dexterity. I have a wider stretch on my left hand because I've been playing bass for years, and that's what my hand is used to doing. So my left hand, this finger is stronger than this finger. So my left little finger is stronger than my right little finger. The other fingers, I think, are much of a muchness. But I'm right-handed, but my left hand is arguably the stronger one, the better one from years of playing bass. So if you're a left-handed player, is there a benefit to playing a left-handed instrument? Or are you ending up stuck in that position, which happens as a left-handed player, of having far fewer instruments to choose from, and also not being able to play other people's instruments when you're hanging around with other musicians because they're strung upside down, they're the other way around? I mean, obviously there's lots of you out there who are left-handed, who play left-handed instruments, and that's just the way you've learnt, and you may be getting quite annoyed at me saying, why do lefties play left-handed instruments? But I know a left-handed piano exists, it's been made, but I've never seen one. I've never heard of people in classical music playing instruments left-handed. Most instruments require two hands, so why would we turn them round for a left-handed person when both hands do different things, and they're difficult things to do whichever way round you are. So there we go. So my opening thought, stop playing sitting down, and my closing thought, why play left-handed instruments? I don't know. I'd like to know, because particularly with my son being left-handed, and he's really into music though, he's only little, I don't want to force him down the route of playing right-handed instruments if I'm wrong. But I saw Becky Baldwin on Instagram talking about this, and I didn't realise she was a left-handed person. She was talking about the challenges of doing DIY with tools being right-handed and her wanting to use them left-handed and where some of the buttons were, but having always played right-handed basses. And I was like, I've thought about this for years, but with my son being lefty, I kind of then, you think about it differently when it's, people like that, and you get less judgmental and less black and white in your views when, you care enough, as opposed to being like, I know the answer to all of this, I'm definitely right. So I don't think I'm right, but I am puzzled. Yes, I'm really puzzled, but I'm not puzzled about the playing sitting down versus standing up thing. I think if you gig standing up, you should probably practice mostly standing up, and you should record standing up. And if you've got a good reason why you're doing it the other way around, tell me. Thank you. Goodbye.